We're going to start in chapter 6, which is the analysis of cost. In this chapter, we're going to discuss different concepts related to the cost, right? The total cost, the total variable cost, the fixed cost, the opportunity cost, the explicit accounting cost, and economic cost. To understand these concepts of different costs, different types of the costs, let us take the following example. Suppose that you are going to start in a new business, which is a brick factory. You need inputs in order to produce outputs. The inputs in the production process is the cost. It's called the cost. And we need different types of inputs or different types of costs. These costs, what do you need to start or to produce bricks? You need machines, machinery. What else? Raw material. Like water, electricity, sand, cement. Yes. What else? You need labor. Land. Yes. Warehouse. To store the outputs, and you have to pay taxes, you have to pay insurance, registrations for the building, and so on. So let's classify the different types of taxes, of the costs. The machines, in the short run, now we're talking about the short run. And later, if we have enough time throughout this semester, we're going to discuss deeply the long run. What about the raw material? Is it variable or fixed? Variable, because if we need to produce more and more bricks, we need more and more raw material. We need more cement, we need more water, we need more sand, and so on. So, as well as it's quite similar to the labor. If we want to produce more bricks, we need more labor. So it's called the variable cost, right? So in this case, the labor and raw material are variable cost, right? Machinery or machines. In the short run, it should be fixed, yes. In the short run, the machines would be fixed. So it's called fixed cost. Suppose that you have and you own the warehouse. Suppose that the firm or the factory has or owns the warehouse, or the warehouse is owned by the firm. In this case, and suppose it used it to store the outputs or the produced bricks. In this case, it's called the opportunity cost or the implicit cost, تكاليف ضمنية, because in this case, the firm does not pay a rent to store or to rent this warehouse, right? So it's called opportunity cost. In this case, the firm sacrificed to use this warehouse. It was easy for the firm to rent it and get or receive money, but it did not do it because it used it to store the outputs of, or its production of bricks, right? So it's called the opportunity cost, التكلفة المضحى بها، تمام؟ أو تكلفة الفرصة البديلة. In economics, it's called the implicit cost. The variable cost and the fixed cost, in this case the machine, raw material, labor, land, and so on, registrations, taxes, insurance, all these costs are paid directly from the firm or explicitly paid for the factors of production التي تدفع صراحة. So it's called the labor. If we pay for to purchase raw material, machinery, labor, all these costs is called explicit cost. Explicit cost. Explicit cost. Or accounting cost. Sorry? Yes, because in this case, the firm pays directly. So all these types of costs is called explicit costs, which are paid directly or explicitly to purchase different factors of production, right? Now let's go. So it's called, in another term, it's called accounting cost. Accounting cost. In economics, the economists consider the explicit and the implicit cost, but the accountants not. They are not. They consider only the explicit cost, right? So if you ask the accountant, what about the total cost or the cost that your firm paid, or in this case, he will say that we purchase machinery, raw material, labor, and land, and he does not consider the warehouse, which is owned by the firm. But if you ask the economists, what about the cost in this case for your factory? He will ask, yes, he will say, our cost is machinery, raw material, labor, land, and warehouse. So he considered the opportunity cost or the implicit cost, right? So we have to distinguish between the economic cost and accounting cost. So let's go to the definitions of the different types of costs, and then let's go to the analysis, right? In this case, as you see, the accounting cost is also known as the explicit cost, that is explicitly paid for the factors of production such as salary, raw material, electricity, insurance, taxes, and so on. The opportunity cost is, or also known as, the implicit cost, that is not actually paid for the factors of production, but it sacrificed for the sake of using existing factors of production available at the workplace. So as you see, this type of cost is what? Is available for or owned for the factory or the firm. So as you see, we have an example for the opportunity cost. If the company owns a warehouse and use it to store products, the company will not pay rent for the usage of what? Of this warehouse, because the company owns it or owns it, right? So in this case, the opportunity cost of the using warehouse is renting and benefiting from the rent. So let's go to the different types of the accounting of costs. We have, as we mentioned, that we have accounting cost, which is the explicit cost, as you see, the accounting cost is the explicit cost only. The economic cost, as we mentioned, that the economists considered the explicit and the implicit cost. So the economic cost equals the explicit and implicit cost. If the implicit cost equals 0, in this case, the accounting cost equals the economic cost because explicit and explicit, right? Normal and economic profits. Normal and economic profits. The normal profits is the accounting profits, which is the accounting profits equals total revenue minus the accounting cost, or the total revenue minus the explicit cost. As we mentioned that the explicit cost is the accounting cost. So the profits, the accounting profits, is the total revenue that the firm gain minus the explicit cost, right? What about the economic profits? Economic profits equals the total revenue minus the economic cost. The economic cost, as we mentioned, equals the implicit cost and explicit. So the economic profits equals total revenue minus an explicit cost plus implicit cost. مظبوط? So, and yes, for sure, come to these points and to calculate the different how to and we are going to calculate average total cost, total variable cost, and different formulas. If you want, yes. Suppose that the total revenue equals $100 or $1,000. Okay, and the economic cost, the explicit cost equals $70. Suppose that the total revenue equals $100 and the explicit cost equals $70. How much is the accounting profits? The accounting profits equals 30. That's it. In this case, suppose that the implicit cost equals 0. Okay, calculate the economic profits. In this case, the economic profits equals 100 minus 70 plus 0 if the implicit cost equals 0. In this case, the economic profits equals 100 minus 70, 30. So the economic accounting profits must equal the economic profits when what? When the implicit cost equals 0. But if the economic profits or the implicit cost equals $20. Suppose the implicit cost equals $70. So in this case, the economic profits would equal 100 minus 70 plus 20 equals 90 equals 10. So in this case, the economic profits is smaller than the accounting profits if we consider the implicit cost, or if the implicit cost is larger than 0. In this case, the economic profits would be less than the accounting profits, right? So we have 3 conditions. Number 1, as you see, if the total revenue is larger than the economic cost. If the total revenue, as you see, is larger than the total revenue is larger than the economic cost. So the company gains economic profits. If the total revenue equals the economic cost, there is no profits. It's called a normal profit. Yes, بيسموها normal profits. أرباح عادية فقط, only. When the economic profits, تمام. In economics, when the economic cost equals 0, or any economic profits equals 0, it's called the normal profits. هيك بيسموها أرباح عادية فقط. تمام. If, so suppose this is 100, if the total revenue equals the economic cost, in this case, the economic profits equals 0, and it's called the normal profits in economics, right? If the total revenue is smaller than the economic cost, the company gains what? Loss by $20 in this case, right? Okay? So let's go to other types of the cost. The fixed cost. As we mentioned that in the short run we have the machinery or the machines are fixed cost, which does not change. The fixed cost, the cost that does not change when the output increased or changed. So let's go to the fixed cost. Any cost that does not depend on the firm's level of output. It does not depend on the, yes, these costs are, so as you see, the total fixed cost is the total of the costs that don't change with outputs, even if output is 0. So as we mentioned that, or as you see, this is the Q. So AFC, yes, the quantity is 0, 1, 2, 3. As you see, the total fixed cost remains constant when the output change, right? What about the average fixed cost? Average fixed cost equals total fixed cost over the Q. When the quantity increased, AFC equals TFC over Q. So when the quantity increased, the AFC would decline. So as you see, because TFC is constant. So as you see in this example, when Q equals 1, TFC 1000, so AFC is 1000. When the output increased to 2 and TFC remains constant, AFC would decline. So as you see, when AFC is declining when the output increased, but it's never reached to the 0. The AFC would never reach to the 0, right? So the average fixed cost is the total cost, or the total fixed cost, divided by the number of units of outputs, a per unit measure of fixed cost. AFC equals TFC over Q. So as you see in this diagram, معلش نطفي الضوء هذا بس الإضاءة. هذول اللي. So as you see in this diagram, this is the total fixed cost, and this is the quantity. In our example, the total fixed cost equals $1,000, right? At quantity 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So the total fixed cost would be a horizontal line, right? So as you see, when the quantity increased, there is no change in the total fixed cost. But what about the average fixed cost? As you see, this is the average fixed cost, AFC, and this is a Q. When the quantity increased, the AFC is declining, but it's never reached to 0, right? Okay, so let's go to the total variable cost. As we mentioned that the total variable cost is the total of cost that it changes or vary with output in the short run. When our okay, so as you see, the total variable cost is the total of the cost that vary with output in the short run. When we want to produce more, we need more variable costs. We need more raw material. We need more workers. We need more and more variable costs. So the total variable cost curve. Okay, let's go to the total variable cost curve. as you see, as we mentioned that if we want to produce more, the total variable cost would increase. So there is a direction relationship between, or a positive relationship between the quantity of, or the output and the total variable cost. If the output increased, the total variable cost would increase. So there is a positive relationship between the output and the total variable cost. So in this diagram, or this graph or curve, illustrates the positive relationship between the output and TVC. If our production is zero, we don't need, if our production of bricks equals zero, we don't need labor, we don't need raw material, we don't need cement to produce, right? So in this case, the total variable cost would equal what? How much? Zero. Excellent. So if our production equals zero, the total variable cost is zero. So the total variable cost curve starts from zero, right? If we want to increase our production to 1, we need more TVC, to 2, to 3. So as you see, that the total variable cost would increase. And we will see it in the long run, it should be like this. Right? So in the long run, it should be like this. This is the total variable cost curve. The marginal cost. The marginal cost is the change in the total cost, or the total variable cost, over the change in a quantity. So MC the marginal cost, MC, equals delta TC over delta Q. The percentage change in the total cost, or the change in total cost over the change in quantity. If we increased the quantity of production or the output by 1 unit, how much is that change, or does that change in the total cost? Or we have another formula, which is the marginal cost equals delta TVC over delta Q. The same, we will reach the same result and the same, the same result. So the marginal cost, as you see, is the increase in total cost results from producing 1 more unit of output. Right? Average variable cost. Average variable cost is quite similar to the formula of the average fixed cost, but it's related to the variable cost. As we mentioned that the average fixed cost equals TFC over Q. Right? Now we are going to discuss the average variable cost equals TVC over Q. Right? And we have average total cost. As we mentioned that total cost equals TVC plus TFC. If we divided the two sides of this formula on by Q, in this case, this is the average total cost equals AVC plus AFC. This is another formula. And we can derive more than 10 formulas from these formulas, right? Like we can see that average variable cost equals ATC minus AFC, or AFC equals ATC minus AVC. Right? We have to use all of these formulas when we calculate the difference, when we answer the following exercise. So suppose that we have the following information quantity produced or the output, total fixed cost and total variable cost. The question is calculate the total cost, average fixed cost, average variable cost, ATC and MC. To calculate the total cost, as we mentioned, total cost equals TFC plus TVC in all cases. So, and as you see, TFC is constant in all quantity produced, at all quantity produced. So, TFC plus TVC, 60 plus 0, 60, 67, and so on. Right? What about AFC? AFC equals TFC over Q. For the first case, 0. And then 60 over 1, 60. 60 over 2, 30. And so on. AVC equals TVC over Q. AVC equals TVC over Q. So, 7 over 1, 7. 8 over 2, yes, 4, and 3, and so on. Right? The answer is here. بس خلينا نشوف how to deal with this. What about ATC? ATC, we can calculate ATC by two formulas. AFC plus AVC or total cost over Q. Right? So we have two formulas. The first formula, in this case, if we use the formula of AFC plus AVC, 60 plus 70, 67. 30 plus 4, 34. Right? Let's use the second or the another formula. TC over Q. In this case, 67 over 1 equals 67. In the second case, TC here is 68. 68 over 2 equals 34. The same result. Right? Okay? What about MC? The marginal cost. We can calculate MC by using two formulas. Number one is delta TC over delta Q, or MC equals delta TVC over delta Q. Let's use the first formula. Let's use the first formula. MC, for the first case, there is no change when the output is 0. And then delta TC, 67 minus 60, 7 over 1 minus 0, 7. Then 68 minus 67 over 2 minus 1, 1 over 1, 1, and so on. Let's use delta TVC, the formula of delta TVC, MC equals delta TVC over delta Q. Delta TVC, for the first case, 7 minus 0 over 1 minus 0. 7 over 1 equals 7. The same result. In the second case, 8 minus 7 equals 1 over 2 minus 1. The same result, 1, and so on. Right? Okay? Right. So, here we have the results. These are the results for the calculation of MC, ATC, AVC, AFC. All right? Okay. Yes.
Relationship between ABC and quality.
Yes.
As in
AVC and the quantity, TVC and the quantity.
TVC.
Yes.
ABC, average fixed cost.
Yes.
I note that when the quantity increase, the average fixed cost will decline as a reason.
Sorry? No, there is what? Sorry. As we mentioned that there is a positive relationship between a Q and TVC. Increasing in the quantity or output leads to increasing in TVC, right? At the same time, there is a negative relationship between AVC and the Q. AVC, TVC over Q. So there is a negative relationship between Q and AVC, and positive relationship between Q and TVC. What's your question exactly? That's it? Tamam. Okay. So let's go to this diagram, which illustrates the relationship between total cost, total variable cost, and total fixed cost. So as you see, this is the Q, or the quantity produced. And this is TC, TVC, TFC. If we use the previous data to illustrate the relationship between TVC, TFC, TC, and the quantity produced, we will reach to the following diagram. So as you see that the total fixed cost remains constant at 60 in this or in the previous exercise. As you see, the total fixed cost remains constant at 60 when the quantity change. So, as you see, the total fixed cost is a horizontal line at 60. The total variable cost starts from 0, right? From 0 and then increased. In this stage, the slope of TVC is larger than this stage. So, what is the slope of TVC? I have another question. What is the slope of TVC? It's delta TVC over delta Q, which is MC. Let's calculate the slope at this point. Delta TVC over delta Q, which is what? Excellent. And at this point, the same for the TC. Here, the slope here is equals the slope here, because MC here delta TC over delta Q, right? Type. What about? So what about total cost? It starts from the TFC. So as you see, even if or when our production equals 0, the total fixed cost equals the total cost. Because in this case, the company or the firm will pay only the total fixed cost if our production equals 0. If our production equals 0, we have to pay only the fixed cost. In our example, for the bricks factory, we have to pay only maybe the rent for the factory, right? As a fixed cost. So, and let us see the difference between, or what do you see? What else? The shape of total cost curve is or has the same shape of the total variable cost curve. They have the same shape and the same slope, right? Because TC equals TVC plus TFC, صح? And TFC is constant, so they have the same slope. What about the difference between TC and TVC here? Excellent. Yes, it's this area from this point to this point. The distance, the vertical distance between TC and TVC is the TFC. So as you see, this distance equals this distance. Right? Because TVC or TFC is TC minus TFC, TVC. TFC equals TC minus TVC. And here the same. TC minus TVC equals TFC, the same distance. Right? And TC minus TFC equals TVC. Right? Okay. Let's draw the relationship between average variable cost, average fixed cost, and marginal cost, and explain the relationship between these curves. So as we mentioned that we analyzed the relationship between total fixed cost, total variable cost, total cost, and with a quantity, right? Now, okay, this is the AFC. Cool. Okay, so let's analyze the relationship between the different curves: AVC, AFC, ATC, and MC. When AVC curve is larger than MC, in this case, at this point before point A, AVC is larger than MC, right? AVC is decreasing, right? When MC is larger than AVC, or AVC is smaller than AMC after A. In this case, AVC is what? Is increasing. The same speech for the AVC and ATC and MC. If ATC is larger than MC, ATC is decreasing. If MC is larger than ATC, ATC is increasing. Right? The minimum point of AVC is called the shutdown point. This point, point A, is called the shutdown point. واللي هي المينيمم of the AVC. Where is the minimum of AVC in this information? The minimum AVC is 3. In this case, AVC is a 3, and the quantity produced is a 3. So let's illustrate it. So in this case, Q is a 3, and the AVC is a 3. So the firm should close or shut down at the minimum average variable cost. We are going to discuss it later. What about this point? ATC, the minimum ATC. It's called the break-even point. Break-even point. تعادل. Break-even point. At this point, which is the minimum ATC, or the least ATC. Where is the least of ATC? 18, yes, excellent. In this case, the Q is 5. So, in this case, the ATC is 80, Q is 5. and ATC is 18. Right? Let's come back to the analysis. Okay, at this point, at the break even, the total revenue equals the total cost. There is no profits. Or the economic profits equals 0. Or we have normal profits somewhere. So in this case, at this point, total revenue equals the total cost. Right? Okay. Or the price equals ATC, the minimum ATC. At this point, the price, when total revenue equals total cost, we have what? Break even, صح? There is a break even. TR is what? Equals what? P times Q, price times Q, right? And must equal total cost at the equilibrium. If we divided these two sides on or by Q, P equals ATC. If the price equals the minimum ATC here, إذا كان السعر يساوي الحد الأدنى للأفريج total cost, in this case there is a break even. Right? تمام؟ طيب. What about, sorry, yes, here. So as you see, number 4, AVC crosses MC at the minimum of AVC, which is the shutdown point, as we mentioned. صح? The ATC crosses the marginal cost at the minimum of what? Of ATC. Right? Hayu. ATC crosses or intersects the marginal cost curve at the minimum of ATC, which is the break-even point. What about ATC? As you see that the average total cost for curve is decreasing, right? But it never reached to the 0. It never touched the horizontal line. The average total cost is never reached to the 0. So it's never touched the horizontal line. Yes, average fixed cost. Yes, sorry, average fixed cost. Yes, AFC. Okay. ATC, as you see, curve is or remains higher than average variable cost. Average total cost is larger than the average variable cost. Right? Okay. More closer. Okay. And when the production increased, as you see, the ATC will close to AVC, but they never touch as well. So as you see, when the quantity produced increased, the distance between ATC and AVC would be closed, but they never touch. ATC and AVC are never touch, right? Okay. Okay, and this exercise, as you see, we have the quantities, total fixed cost, TVC, TC, FC, and let's calculate the missing values. As we mentioned that the total fixed cost remains constant even if our production is 0 or 1,000 units. So in this case, the total fixed cost equals 10. So the total fixed cost would not change when the output change. So the total fixed cost equals 10 in all cases, right? Let us take each two given information to calculate the missing third, the third. So in this case, we can calculate TC. TC equals TVC plus TFC, so it would be 30. We can benefit from this point. 40 minus 10 equals 30. Right? What else? What else? We can calculate AFC. AFC equals TFC over Q. So AFC equals, in this case, 10 over 1, 10, 5, 3.3, and 2.5, 2, what? 1 point, how much? 4. Okay. 6. 4 6 قديش؟ 6 6 يمكن. حسبوها، حدا يحسب على الآلة بس. طيب, let's go to to benefit from other. In this case, 2.5 AFC plus AVC is ATC, right? So it's equals here to 27.5, right? صح? And we can calculate, we can use this point to calculate total cost, right? Because that average variable cost, average total cost equals how much? AFC or ATC equals TC over Q. ATC equals total cost over Q, right? So the total cost equals ATC times Q. So here we have ATC and the Q. ATC and the Q. So we can easily calculate the total cost. قديش؟ 110. Okay. So here we have TC and TFC. So it's easy to calculate TVC. TC minus TFC, 100. Right?
TC equal TFC and Q.
Sorry?
TC
equals TFC when the production equals 0. So TC equals TFC when our production equals 0. So in this case, TVC equals 0 for sure. When our production or output equals 0, in this case, the total variable cost equals 0. What else?
ABC 32.
Yes. AVC equals TVC, okay. And the same for the total variable cost for marginal cost. Can we, in this case, we benefits, bro. At this point, ATC equals 32 and the Q equals 5. How much is the total cost? ATC times the Q. قديش؟ 160 اللي هو total cost. So the total variable cost equals total cost minus TFC, 150. What else? AVC in which point? At this point? AVC, yes, because AVC equals ATC minus AFC. It should be 30. Right?
MC.
Sorry?
MC.
Yes, we can benefit from MC. MC equals delta TC or delta TVC over delta Q. As we mentioned that MC equals delta TC over delta Q, or MC equals delta TVC over delta Q. In the first case, delta TC, 30 minus 10 over 1 minus 0, 20. صح? Then 40 minus 30 over 2 minus 1. 10. Which one? Over 0. 20. تمام. هذا إذن مش 30. هذه 10. Then 30 هذه given بتكون معطاه هيك. في نقل البيانات بتكون هيك. تمام. And then 100 minus how much equals 30? Sorry? Which one? Let's follow up the exercise. In this case, 30 minus 20 over 2 minus 1 equals 10. Here. هذه 10 مش 30 شباب. اللي تحت منها اللي it's given هذه 30 هيك. بعدين ايش ناقص 30 على 3 ناقص 2 بيعطيني 30؟ 60. The same هنا 70. صح؟ طيب then at this point 100 minus 60 over 4 minus 3 40. هذا 50. هذا في الارقام معلش هو بده شيفتنج بالارقام. هذا given 50 50 وهذه given 60. ماشي؟ هذول الجيفن بس هذول بدهم تنزيل كانوا هيك. So 150 minus 100 over 5 minus 4 equals 50. بعدين ايش ناقص 160 على 6 ناقص 5 بيعطيني 60. 220. Or how much minus 150 over 6 minus 5 equals 60. قديش ناقص 150 على 6؟ Or هيها 210. هذا ناقص هذا بعطيني هذا. مظبوط؟ What about the AVC? It's easy to calculate the AVC. AVC equals TVC over Q. 20 over 1, 20. 15. Then TVC 60 over 20. Excellent. بعدين 50 it's given. 30. 35. How much? TVC over Q. How much? 35. You're right. Okay, so let's calculate the average total cost. Average total cost equals AFC plus AVC or TC over Q. The same results. So in this case, 30, 20, 23.3. It's given here. 36.6. What else? We have finished. تمام. يعطيكم العافية.